Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. So what I have for you guys today, I've had a lot of requests recently that I should be doing some championship predictions for what I think is going to happen in this upcoming season. And for me, it's a little bit early to be going ahead and predicting the full championship table, as we do still have about 3 weeks left of this transfer window. But what I thought I'd do for you guys today is I will give you guys some early predictions for what I think is going to happen in this upcoming championship season. So in this video, we're not going to be going ahead and breaking down the table for exactly as how I think it's going to finish, as like I said, I think it's a bit too early to be doing that, and the predictions probably won't even be that good as it is this early on in the transfer window. But what I thought we'd do is I'm going to go ahead and group each team in the championship into a category of the table as to whereabouts I think they'll be. So in today's video, we're going to be grouping each team in the championship as to whether we'll think they'll be fighting relegation this season, in mid-table, fighting for the playoffs, or going for automatic promotion. So this video could throw up some interesting debates in the comments down below, so I'm interested to see what you guys are saying about this, and where do you expect your team to finish in and about the table? What position of the table do you think you'll find yourself? Also, at this point in the season, who are your 3 favourites for relegation, and who are you fancying for promotion at this point in time? So we'll go ahead and work through this video. We'll start out in the relegation zone, and the teams I think will be around that zone, and then we'll work our way up the championship. So if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated, and make sure you do subscribe for some regular championship content. So let's go ahead and start out with the teams we think will probably be battling relegation this season. Something that I always find quite interesting to look at is what the bookmakers are saying for who the favourites for relegation are at this point in time. And according to the bookmakers, Bolton, Rotherham and Ipswich are currently the 3 favourites for relegation, with Bolton being the most likely to go down at the moment, ahead of Rotherham, which is quite surprising to me. So as you can see on screen now, guys, there are the teams who I think could potentially be in and around the relegation zone this season. Of course, like I said, it is still very early on, so I could be completely wrong with some of these shouts, but let's go ahead and talk about each club individually and why they could potentially be facing it out at the bottom of the championship. So we'll start out with the 3 clubs who were recently promoted back up to the championship from League One last season. I think it's always an obvious case to go ahead and suggest that these clubs will be in and around the relegation zone. Starting out with Rotherham United, of course. I mean, I can't see them being as poor as they were last time out in the championship. That season, they only went ahead and finished with 23 points, and pretty much for the whole of that season, they were rooted to the bottom of the table. I respect what Paul Werner was able to do with that squad last season. I think he's been able to rejuvenate that team. Will they have the quality to stay up this year? I'm not so sure. They will be a lot of people's favourites to go straight back down this year, I'm sure, but who knows, they could surprise a few of us. We then get to Blackburn Rovers and Wigan Athletic, of course, both clubs coming up through automatic promotion, and both having very good spines, really. I'd suggest that from their time last time in the championship, both teams which are coming back up now, I think they've both got a much stronger core of players now at that team. I think the way the clubs are being run is a lot better than they were last time. You know, a lot of things were going on behind the scenes, especially at Blackburn Rovers last time they were relegated, which sort of seems to have gone away a little bit. You know, I think Tony Mowbray is a very capable manager for Blackburn Rovers. Similar for Wigan as well with Paul Cook. I think he did an excellent job with them last season. And there is always that one club who comes up from League One who tends to surprise everyone. You know, last year we had Millwall. The season before that, I suppose we had Barnsley. Before that, we had Preston. And then before that, we had Brentford. So there always does seem to be one club who comes up from League One who carries on with that momentum. And I do have that feeling that either Blackburn or Wigan could be that side next season. But interestingly, at this point in time, Bolton are actually the favourites for relegation according to the bookmakers, of course. The other day, they had a pre-season friendly cancelled after their players went on strike, after there were unpaid contracts at the club, and that just goes to put a bit of a dampener on this start of the season for Bolton. You know, I think they have to do quite a bit more transfer business as well if they are going to avoid the drop this season. And like I said, it just goes to put on a bit of a dampener for the opening of the season for Bolton Wanderers, and a lot of people will be predicting Bolton to go back down, of course. This last season, of course, managing to stay up on the last day thanks to an Aaron Wilbraham last-minute goal, but will they be able to repeat it this year? I'm not so sure. Hull City are another side who I do anticipate to be in and around the bottom of the table this season, of course. The problems that Hull are having off the pitch at the moment is very apparent. You know, we don't really need to go over there, but they've lost the spine of the team they had last season, and even last season they were very disappointing at the majority of the season, really. They went ahead and conceded 70 goals last season, and when you consider some of the players that they've lost, you know, they've lost the players like Dawson, Myler, Larson and Abel Hernandez, really was that spine of that team from last season. One positive that I throw at Hull fans is they do still have some quality players in there, you know, players like Jared Bowen, Jackson Irvine and Henriksen. However, when you actually look over the entire Hull City squad, it is incredibly thin at the moment, and they need to do a lot of transfer business in these next few weeks if they are going to avoid the drop this season, in my opinion. Nigel Atkins, I think he is a capable manager. I think he's a solid pair of hands in the Championship, but this may be one job too big for him this season with Hull. A lot of people have been talking about QPR and relegation this season. Honestly, I think that squad's good enough to survive, really. I think they'll be more towards that lower mid-table sort of part of the season. However, with Steve McLaren in charge, anything is possible at QPR. I do think that they need to do quite a bit of business as well if they are going to improve upon their finish last season. You know, they've been linked with some decent players, but the transfer business so far has been fairly slow at QPR compared to some of the other clubs who finished around them last season. Also, interestingly enough, they also, similar to Hull City, conceded 70 goals last season. And when you consider that Alex Smithies, their goalkeeper, who was actually a very good player last season, has gone ahead and left, defensively, QPR, they need to improve next season. I found it quite interesting that Ipswich are currently the third favourites for relegation. Myself, personally, I don't really see that. I think that the squad they've got there is more than capable of having a solid finish in the Championship, of course. Probably one of the main reasons why the bookmakers have put Ipswich as one of the favourites for relegation is, of course, Mick McCarthy has left the club, and they're going ahead and appointed Paul Hurst there. Paul Hurst not really having any experience at this level of English football, but if you look at his record last season with Shrewsbury, he did a fantastic job there. I think it's obvious that a club like Ipswich, with the, who do give managers time, will give Paul Hurst the right amount of time to go ahead and sort out this squad and get them playing in a style that he wants them to. I get the impression that this will be sort of a transition season for Ipswich. I can't see them, really improving on last season. It's going to be important for Ipswich that they do keep hold of their big players. Bilkowski's been linked away from the club at the moment. Same with Martin Waghorn as well after that impressive season he had. So if they do keep hold of their big players, I can't see them being threatened by relegation. Then we have Reading, one of those curveball teams who you never really know what to expect from them, of course. Last season things got very sour with Jaap Stam, and of course Paul Clement came in to save the job in the end. And with that Reading side, I don't really know what to expect from them. The business that they've done so far has been slightly underwhelming. I see them being in that lower part of mid-table again, really, unless they really are to go ahead and push the boat out for the rest of this transfer window. So there are the clubs who are currently being talked about in terms of relegation. So we'll now move on to talking about the clubs who I think will be sat in and around mid-table this season. So as we go through these teams, this is in no particular order, really. This is just a randomly selected list as the clubs I want to talk about in no particular order, really. Millwall are a club who I do see being in mid-table this season, really. Of course, last season they went ahead and surprised absolutely everyone. They turned the Den into an absolute fortress last season, and I anticipate teams to maybe adapt the way they're playing against Millwall next season. I also think for Millwall to really go ahead and improve on their finish last season, they need to come up with a plan B. There were a couple of instances last season where they were becoming unstuck. Another striker is pivotal that they get that over the line at Millwall in this transfer window. But overall, it's a very solid squad, and I see them being mid-table. Then we have Norwich City, another club who I see having probably another mid-table finish, actually. What's interesting about Norwich, of course, there are very high expectations there, as it wasn't too long ago since they were, of course, sat in the Premier League. Since they've come back down to the Championship, this will be their third season back. They've not really gone to impress or blow anyone away. As well as that, they've also lost some pretty big players from last season, both Josh Murphy and James Maddison moving on. What's interesting about that is those two actually contributed to 42% of Norwich's goals from last season. So will they be able to replicate that and fill the void left by those two players? It's yet to be seen. I think that Daniel Farke has built solid foundations with the Bundesliga players that he's brought into this Norwich squad. I think it's defensively they're a sound team. Going forward, I still feel like they lack that spark. Birmingham are another side who I see being in and around mid-table this season. Of course, last season being threatened by relegation. I mean, last season they were always destined to fail, really. They started the season with Harry Redknapp, spent a lot of money. Those signings didn't really click instantly. Then they went ahead and brought in Steve Cottrell, so things only went from bad to worse. And then they finally got a capable manager in Gary Monk. I think that a manager like Gary Monk will be able to stabilise this Birmingham side this season. Honestly, I don't see them pushing for the playoffs this season. I think that will be a step too far for them. I just see this season about solidifying for Birmingham and being that comfortable mid-table finish. Birmingham so far in the transfer window haven't been too busy, but the players that they've been linked with so far have been very encouraging. So I'm quite interested. Birmingham are one of those teams who I will be keeping my eye on over the next 3 weeks or so. And then moving on to Birmingham's rivals, Aston Villa are another club this season who, honestly, I do see them being in and around mid-table. I'm not sure that they're going to be pushing for the playoffs this season, especially when you consider that the spine of that Aston Villa side has just gone now. You know, players like Sam Johnson, John Terry, Robert Snodgrass, and Lewis Graben. The quality players in each area of the pitch have gone now for Aston Villa now. When you look, obviously, the financial troubles which Aston Villa have at the moment is apparent. You know, we don't really need to go over those again, but when you look at the calibre of players who Aston Villa are being linked to this season compared to last season, I think it's obvious that there's going to be a drop-off from Villa. When you do go over the Aston Villa squad for, you know, a possible starting 11 next season, it's still a solid championship team. However, the quality they have this season, it just doesn't stack up to last season, really. Then we have Bristol City, another club who I fear could be in and around mid-table this season. Bristol City, let's get it right. They are an impossible club to call, of course. Of course, the last two seasons before the last one, they were fighting it out in and around the relegation zone. Last season, for the majority of it, they were battling it out for the playoffs and ultimately finished 11th in the end, of course. The big outgoings from Bristol City this season have been Bobby Reid and Aidan Flint, two crucial players from their season last time. And with the players that have come in, I feel like they made a lot of solid signings, but nothing that's completely blown me away so far. I feel like a lot of the players from last season will really have to step up if they are going to have a proper challenge at the top six. You know, players like Jeju, Jamie Patterson, and Bailey Wright are really going to have some exceptional seasons if Bristol City are going to be challenging for the top six. But what do you guys think? Bristol City, they're definitely capable of making the top six challenge. Will they be able to do it without Bobby Reid, though? Let me know down below. Sheffield United are another club who I think could be on the verge of challenging for the top six or could be in and around that mid-table finish. I think that what's going to be important for Sheffield United is how they actually finish this transfer window and the players they actually bring in. I think that that's going to determine where they finish this season. If you look at the foundations for the Sheffield United squad, I think it's a very solid, capable team in the Championship. You know, that back five that they played with last season, I think is exceptional. The midfield three as well, with a returning Paul Coots. As long as they keep those midfielders together, I think they'll be onto a good one. The only thing that concerns me with Sheffield United at the moment is their striking options. Now, they have been linked with quite a few strikers at the moment, so we can't really read too much into it, as they probably will bring in a couple of strikers. But if we look at last season, of course, their top scorer being Leon Clark, I think scoring 18 goals. Will he be able to replicate that going into this season? I'm not so sure. But now, guys, we will move on into the sides who I think will be challenging for the top six going into this season. So starting out, we have Brentford. I think that Brentford always a club who seems to be there or thereabouts when it comes to the playoffs. I think the core of players they have is a very good youthful bunch. One thing that Brentford have been, you know, hit by in recent years is a lot of their big players tend to leave, you know, late on in the transfer window. Last season, losing players like Harley Dean and Jota didn't really seem to faze them. The young group of players they have at that team at the moment, I think, are very capable of making a top six challenge. Just a couple more additions they need to make in this transfer window. Derby, similar to Brentford as well, always a club who seems to be there or thereabouts. The unknown with Derby at the moment is, of course, Frank Lampard being their manager. Will he be a success or not? I mean, no one could say for sure. It's going to be completely guesswork on that, but I'd quite like to see Frank Lampard do well. You know, I do like Frank Lampard. Of course, another uncertainty at Derby County at the moment is what is going to happen with Maciej Vydra, of course. The incomings have been very slow at Derby at the moment, and I feel like that is because this Vydra saga is just dragging on and dragging on, you know. If Vydra is to end up leaving Derby in this transfer window, realistically, it's probably going to be better if that happens sooner rather than later, so that they can properly look to reinvest that money into other areas of the squad. One thing that Lampard does need to do with this Derby squad is lower the average age of the team. You know, it was a very aging squad last season, and although they did make it into the playoffs, you can only expect an aging squad like that to slowly start to decline. My club, Preston North End, are a club who I do anticipate to be challenging for the top six going into this season, of course. Last season, we only just missed out on the playoffs on the last day by 2 points in the end, so really gutting for me. But overall, I think that the business that we've done in this transfer window has been very encouraging. You know, one thing that I was saying a lot last season with Preston North End was I felt that our starting 11 was, you know, more than capable of making it into the top six. You know, if we weren't hit by as many injuries as we were last season, we probably would have gone on to do that. But our squad depth last season really wasn't good. You know, when our first 11 were getting injured, the players coming in to replace them really weren't up to the same standard. I do feel like we've addressed that in this summer transfer window. The players that we brought in fit into our model of, you know, young, hungry players who so far in pre-season have gone on to impress me. You know, players like Graham Burke I think will fit in very well. We probably are just lacking one or two more players, perhaps a winger and a target man as well. And then who knows what could happen. You know, this squad is still a very young squad under Alex Neil, and I just feel like we're going to improve and improve. So hopefully the top six will be in reach for Preston next season. Sheffield Wednesday are a club who I do think will be challenging for the playoffs this season, of course. Last season, they had a bit of a disaster, really. Of course, they were hit by an abundance of injuries, and nothing seemed to click for them, of course. They parted company with Carlos Carvajal about halfway through that season, and realistically, it was just a bit of a write-off for them, really. When you look at their starting 11 when everyone is completely fit, it is a very capable squad in the Championship, and they should be challenging for the top 6 going into this season, you know, especially if they manage to keep players like Fernando Forestieri, Barry Bannon fit going into next season. The players that they have going forward are very exciting, I think it's fair to say. I still feel like they are lacking a little bit of pace going forward, need to address that right wing-back spot as well, but apart from that, it is a very solid squad. Leeds United are a team who no one really knows what to expect from them going into this season. There is never a dull moment around Leeds at the moment, but one of the transfer rumours, of course, like we mentioned when we were talking about Derby, the Vidra saga is just dragging on and dragging on. Will he go to Leeds? Will he not go to Leeds? Who knows? But I feel like as soon as they get some deals over the line, Leeds will be looking to go in the right direction, you know. The players that they're being linked to in this transfer market has been very promising. I think that if they do manage to get some of these signings over the line, under the management of Marcelo Bielsa, I think we will see a vast improvement from Leeds last season, you know. Under Paul Heckingbottom last season, they were just bad. I mean, they were really bad at times last season, but managed correctly under a top quality manager like Marcelo Bielsa, I feel like Leeds could be onto a good one next season. And then Nottingham Forest, a team who a lot of us are very excited about watching going into this season. If we actually look over what could be potentially their starting 11 at this point in time going into next season, this is what I've gone ahead and compiled. And when you look at that team, I think it is a very capable one, especially going forward. They've got a lot of attacking options. The way I see this team functioning, I think that players like Diaz and Goncalves will look to cut inside and support Graben. You know, Graben perhaps not the best hold-up player, but his poaching inside the box can be absolutely quality. And then someone like Carvalho will be left to roam in the spaces in between. The only thing that concerns me about this Nottingham Forest side is defensively, I still feel like there are a couple weaknesses in that side. I think another holding midfielder to go ahead and play alongside Watson will probably be needed as well. But going forward, I don't think Forest will have a problem next season. You know, those attacking players, I think, really will light it up. Defensively, though, there could be a couple issues there. Swansea City are another club who I think should be in and around the playoffs this season, especially with that group of players that they've, of course, got coming down from the Premier League. One thing to be said about Swansea, I'd probably suggest that they are in the worst position out of all the relegated clubs coming back down to the Championship. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. The transfer business so far there has been very slow. There's not been many outgoings and there's not been very many incomings as well. But that core group of players that they've got there, if they do manage to keep, you know, the majority of them together, I think that Graham Potter could be onto a good season next year with Swansea. Let me know down below what you make of Swansea so far. But in all honesty, there are 3 clubs at this point in time who I do see challenging for automatic promotion. They are West Brom, Middlesbrough and Stoke City. Currently, they are probably my favourite 3 to bounce straight back up to the Premier League. Let me know what you guys think of that in the comments down below. So we'll start out with West Brom, of course. In the Premier League last season, for the majority of it, they were an absolute shambles until Darren Moore came in through the door and almost saved them, really. You know, the progress that he showed in the short time he was in charge of West Brom, you know, there's a lot of promise there going into this season in the Championship, of course. They've already completed the signing of Sam Johnson, I think, who will be a top goalkeeper. You know, he showed from his season last time out with Aston Villa that he's an incredibly capable keeper in the Championship. They still need to refine a couple of their attacking options as well and bring in a few more players, but overall, if you look at the quality of players in that West Brom squad, I think they should be up there next season. Middlesbrough as well, another club who I think will be in and around the top of the table next season under Tony Pulis. When you look at the spine of players at that Middlesbrough squad, it is a top Championship team. You know, Darren Randolph, arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship. They've then got players like Aidan Flint, Daniel Ayala, Ben Gibson as centre-backs. In the midfield, bringing in players like Paddy McNair. Still, they have Adama Traore. If they manage to keep hold of Adama Traore, that will be probably the best bit of business any Championship club will do this season. Do Middlesbrough fans think he'll stay? Let me know down below, but that would be an incredible bit of business. The only thing that Middlesbrough need to sort out is their attacking options. You know, what's going to happen with Assombalonga, whether he'll stay or go. But overall, I think that Middlesbrough are set up for a successful season next year. And of course, Stoke City, another club who I think should be in and around the top of the Championship going into this season. I mean, when you look at the group of players that Stoke have at the moment, realistically, they shouldn't have been relegated last season with the quality that they actually had in that squad. It was a mystery to me how that happened in the end. When you look at the players who will actually be staying with Stoke in the Championship from that Premier League season and the players they're being linked to at the moment. I mean, Stoke really are showing ambition with the money they've already spent and the money they intend to spend as well. You know, heavily being linked with players like Matt Ritchie at the moment. That would just be an incredible sign. It's clear to see that Stoke want to have an instant bounce back up to the Premier League. So the question I ask to you guys is, who do you see winning the Championship this season? Do you think that Stoke City will be doing it? Of course, they are currently the favourites with the bookmakers as well to go on and win the Championship, and rightly so. The squad of players they have at the moment is an incredibly strong squad to be going into a Championship season with, especially as there are still 3 weeks left of this transfer window. So guys, there you have it. There are some of my early predictions as to what part of the table I think each Championship club will be finishing come the end of the season. So what I'll be interested to know from you guys is, what part of the table do you realistically see your club finishing in this season? Do you think you'll be battling relegation in and around mid-table, or will you be fighting for promotion this season? Let me know down below what you guys are thinking. Also, let me know in the comments down below who are your current favourites. Also, let me know in the comments down below who are your current favourites for relegation and favourites for promotion. If I had to call it right at this point in time now, I'd say my 3 favourites for relegation would probably be Bolton, Rotherham and Hull City. And my 3 favourites for promotion probably would be Stoke, Middlesbrough and I'll say West Brom at this point in time. Let me know down below if you guys agree or disagree. But guys, like I said, that will now wrap it up for this video. So if you did enjoy, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you do subscribe for some regular Championship content. But apart from that guys, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.